All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to put on our detective hats and solve what looks like a simple math problem, but is actually a pretty fascinating case about how money moves in a modern economy. Let's call it the case of the two tax bills. Okay, so this is our case file. We've got MK Traders in Delhi, and they're providing services to two guys, Rakesh and Raj. You can see the services have different costs, and there's a 12% tax involved. So, the mystery, we've got to figure out these specific taxes each person paid and what their final bill looks like. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because at first glance, you'd think their tax bills would be pretty much identical. But spoiler alert, they're not. And that leads us to the big question we're trying to solve here. Why would two people buying the exact same services from the exact same place have their taxes calculated differently? So, to crack this thing, we gotta follow the clues. And you might think the key is buried somewhere in the numbers, but it's not. The most important piece of evidence, it's actually been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Okay, so before we get into all the tax craziness, every good investigation has to start with the basics. Let's just establish the facts. What's the total cost of the services before any tax gets added? This number is our baseline, the foundation for everything else. All right, let's just do the simple math. The services cost 500, 300, 400, and 600 rupees. You add those all up, and you get a total of 1,800 rupees. So, we know for a fact that both Raj and Rakesh are getting taxed on this same amount. That tells us the cost isn't the variable here. It's time to find that crucial clue. And here it is. The answer to this whole mystery isn't about what they bought or how much it cost. The entire case, the whole thing, hinges on one simple detail: where our two buyers, Raj and Rakesh, are from. So check this out. Raj is from Delhi, and the seller is also in Delhi. That's what we call an intrastate transaction. Intra just means within. But Rakesh, he's from Agra, which is in a whole different state. That makes his purchase an interstate transaction. Inter meaning between. And believe it or not, this one little difference changes absolutely everything. So the tax we're dealing with here is GST, the goods and services tax. It's basically this one big tax that's on almost everything you buy. In our case, it's a flat 12%. But here's the thing. This one tax can kind of wear a few different hats depending on the situation. And this, right here, is the absolute core of our mystery. See, GST isn't just one thing. It's collected in different ways depending on where the sale happens. If the sale is local, like within the same state, that tax gets split into two: CGST for the central government and SGST for the state government. But if that sale crosses a state line, the whole system changes. It's collected as one single tax, IGST, or integrated GST. All right, let's start piecing this together. We'll start with Raj, our local buyer there in Delhi. How does his intrastate, his within-the-state transaction, actually get taxed? Okay, first things first, let's just figure out the total tax amount. We take our total service cost, that's 1,800 rupees, and multiply it by the 12% GST rate. Simple enough. That gives us a total tax of 216 rupees. Now, because Raj is in the same state as the seller, this 216 rupees isn't just paid as one lump sum. For intrastate deals, the rule is super simple. The tax gets split right down the middle, 50-50, between the central government and the state government. And you can see that split perfectly right here. That total 12% GST gets divided equally. 6% goes to the central government as CGST, and the other 6% goes to the state government as SGST. Easy. So when you do the final math for Raj, that 216 rupees in tax becomes 108 rupees for CGST and 108 rupees for SGST. And just like that, case number one is solved. Okay, on to our second person of interest, Rakesh from Agra. Now, he bought the exact same stuff, but because he's in a different state, we've got to crack the interstate code. And again, our starting point is exactly the same. The service value is 1,800 rupees, the GST rate is 12%. So you do the math, and the total tax amount is still 216 rupees. Absolutely no difference there. But here's the twist. For an interstate deal, the tax isn't split up like before. To keep things simple and make sure the right state actually gets its money, the central government collects the entire tax as one single integrated amount. And that means, for Rakesh, the whole 216 rupees is charged as IGST. No CGST, no SGST, just one single tax payment. And with that, we have all the pieces of the puzzle. All right, let's bring it all home. We've looked at the clues, we've done the math. It's time to lay out the final tally and officially close this case. Okay, take a look at this. For Raj in Delhi, his tax is split, 108 in CGST and 108 in SGST. For Rakesh and Agra, it's 0 for those two, and the full 216 is IGST. But, and this is the big reveal, look at that final column. Their total bills are exactly the same, 2,016 rupees. So what does this all mean? It means the total amount of tax they both paid was identical. The real difference wasn't how much they paid, it was where the money went. Raj's tax got split between the central government and his home state, Delhi. Rakesh's tax, on the other hand, was collected entirely by the central government, which then makes sure it gets to his home state. And that brings us to the why behind this whole system. It's all about fairness. See, GST is what's called a destination-based tax. That's just a fancy way of saying the tax money should go to the state where the stuff is actually used or consumed, not where it's sold from. The IGST system is just the clever mechanism that makes sure that happens, making sure Rakesh's home state gets the tax from his purchase.
And that leaves us with one final thought. This whole system is built around physical state borders. But think about it. We live in an age of digital services, streaming, online shopping, where those borders are getting pretty blurry. It raises a really interesting question for the future. How does a tax system built on location adapt to a world that's becoming more and more borderless? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me on this one.